So I have another tip for you this week. This one's going to help you out with archery. Now on my bow, I have a sight. It's got 5 pins. And the first one's it's green, red, and yellow. And I usually set these up 10, 20, and 30 yards on it. Now when I'm setting up my stand in the field, in my ambush area, the zone where I expect the deer to come through, I'll range out trees at 10, 20, and 30 yards and mark it with ribbon, whether it's red ribbon, green ribbon, yellow ribbon, to the prospective yards. So this way, as a deer's coming through, I can set up on the shot without having to worry about ranging where that deer is. I can merely look at the ribbons on the trees and see, is he at 20 yards? Is he between the 20 and 30 yards? So then I know, he's at about 25 yards. And this is also very helpful in the low light conditions in early morning or late evening. 20 yards can look, either super far away or super close in these low light conditions. And that can be the difference of a deer running 40 yards or 240 yards on you. So this will help. You don't have to fumble around with a rangefinder when the deer's coming in, a little less movement, and you can go right to the shot. All right, everyone. So this week I started to have to get my act together and get the equipment out, start prepping for season opening tomorrow on Saturday. I'm not going to get out for the Saturday morning hunt. I'm coaching my daughter's softball team, so we got a game in the morning. But I'm going to be out there for the evening and the Sunday morning hunt. So that'll be good. This week I spent some time doing some long distance practice with the bow out at 40 and 50 yards. I never set up on such a long distance, but when you practice 40 and 50 yard shots, you're going to find that your 20 and 30 yard shots just become a lot easier. You have to have a lot tighter form, a lot steadier arm to really get accurate at 40 and 50 yards. And that just makes your 20 and 30 yard shots so much easier. It's something to try. Shoot those long distances and then come back into 20 yards, and it's going to feel so easy to shoot accurately at 20 yards. So I went out and got my stand set up this afternoon. I got some footage of that, some new things going on with this new spot. And I also went by my old spot and pulled the memory disk from that camera and got a few things to show with that. So let's go into the footage of my stand setup so you guys can see exactly where I'm going to be this opening weekend. All right, so we have a fresh scrape starting right there. Walking under there. And we have a good rub on that tree. You can even see where the tines are hitting the tree behind it. So that's a decent rack making all the rubs behind. Not only on the tree, but the tree behind. This is about 40 yards from my stand, right out in front. So if something comes by, I should be able to see it here. Won't have a shot on it due to the weeds, but I should be able to see it. Alright. So this is that crossing, and this is that tree that I thought about cutting down. And I started using it as a nice rub. Nice signpost. I'm just going to come around this way. About 20 yards from my tree right there. Alright, so this is that grassy cut through, kind of that funnel point that I'm set up on. Right there. That's the tree with the new rubs working on it. That's right at 20 yards there. The far side, that's 25 yards. Very easy shots. So even if the deer doesn't cross through coming my way and it stays on that side, that's going to be an easy shot. Probably put a scent or a mineral lick right over there just to get them to stop for me. Back in those trees, just behind the edge brush, is where that scrape is working, that big rub is on the tree. You can see over here that this crossing, this funnel, is pretty thick. So that should bring a lot of traffic right through here if they're looking to cross. This is another grassy path that comes around the side. Goes out to about 50 yards, but Right there, those small pines, it's 20 and 30 yards. Works its way in to right about 12 yards right at this crossing. Just below, that's about a 10-yard shot there if they cut through. Definitely real easy shots. Back over to the left, there's another big scrape in that area. And as you can see, there is a possibility of them coming up on my left shoulder, cutting through here. Definite possibility. Back here is actually the way I walk into this spot. So what's nice is I don't cross over my ambush point. Back over to the right. Across the way is about 100, 110 yards. Once again, you can see it's pretty thick through here. So the deer, if they're going to cross from one set of trees to the set that I'm standing in, they're going to have to come through that funnel point. Right here you can see I got my camera arm set up on a tree that's directly in front of me. Not to the tree that's actually my stand is on. So that's my setup. This also worked out nice. I had a little pine here and some brush and a pine right in front. So if I'm not drawing up on the deer, as they're crossing through this area, I'll be able to grab my bow if I don't already have it and draw back on them for when they come out on the sides. So that should work out well. That's the spot. Tomorrow's opening day. Let's see what I can do. So aside from my camcorder on a camera arm, I also have an action camera that's hung up just over my right shoulder. So that's going to give a third-person view of me in the stand and just what might be going on right in front of me there. So as I mentioned, I pulled the memory card from the camera I had set up at my old position. This is overlooking a scrape it's a scrape site that really gets used almost every year for the years that I've been hunting out at Tiger Bay. So I always tend to put a camera up over it. As you can see out in front, you can see how wet it is out there, which is why I went looking for a new spot. Things are drying up. This is actually drier than it's been out there, as strange as that may seem. I got some a night footage. You can kind of see just how much water is in front of there. But the deer still do move through there. I think they move through there a little less when it gets this wet. I think that further in front, it's a lot thicker and drier, and the deer tend to stay up in those higher ground, dry areas. See, we got a coyote running through, but you can see how much water is up there. There was still a fair amount of deer activity. Got a little button buck here, just probably a year and a half old. But then, of course, we did get a nice buck here. He didn't come in close in front of the camera, but even through the trees, you can see he's got a rack on him. So, thankfully, he came by at another time to really show what style of rack he had, and he started working that scrape. Here you can see it's a nice 8-point, definitely a shooter buck. Everybody talks about most of the time scrapes don't get worked except at night, but I've got a number of footage over the years of deer working this scrape at the daytime. So typically I like to hunt it, and I know with a deer like this out there, you're wondering why I'm not set up on it. It's just really wet, and there's not a good funnel area out there like I'm set up on this year. So I'm going to hunt this new spot, at least these first couple weekends, see what's going through there, maybe put a camera out when I go out tomorrow and see how big, what bucks are moving through the area as well. But this area, maybe I'll get back in here during muzzle loader season or general gun season. Here's a good close-up of the rack, good thick rack. Once again, this is open public ground. This isn't even permit hunting, so that's a nice buck to find out in these areas. Here, I just wondered if this was the same buck. It was a little hard to tell. It did look a little bit smaller, but it came and worked that same scrape. It's going to turn out about 20 minutes after this buck came through. our original guy, that nice big 8-pointer came through, and you can see definitely distinguished difference in the size of these deers. So I'm going to hunt this first weekend, maybe the second weekend, out at the spot where I'm currently set up on. If don't get much moving through there, don't see any shooter bucks come through, then it's going to be really easy for me to just pick up my stands and move back over into this spot and start hunting this deer. Like I said, it's just it's not a good funnel spot to bring them in close in that 20 to 30 yard area. You can set up on that scrape, but they don't always hit the scrape every time they go through the area. Good luck out there.